loved by you. Who am I? Who am I that I remain on your mind? I don't know, but I will. What have I done? What have I done to deserve your only? Oh, I don't know, no. I don't know, but you're faithful. And I thank you for not leaving me where you found me, God. Whoa, whoa. And I give you reasons to go, but you give me your heart. Still say, I am loved by you. I am loved by you. Just as I am. Woo. Feels good to be loved by you. Everybody say, I am loved by you. Ooh, I am loved by you. Just as I am. Feels good to be loved. Feels good to be loved by you. Yeah, I am loved. I am loved by you. Loved by you. Just as I am. Feels good. Feels good to be loved. One more time. I am loved by you. Still. Just as I am. Feels good to be loved by you. Woo. Feels so good to be loved by you. Feels so good to be loved by you. So we sing, you know me. You know me. You see me. You see me. Just as I am. Just as I am. I am enough for you. You know me. You know me. And you see me. You see me. Just as I am. Just as I am. I am enough. Come on, sing it. You know me. You know me. You see me. Just as I am. Not the perfect me. I am enough for you. Know me. Yeah. You see me. Just as I am. I am enough. Just as I am. The real me, not the fake me. You love the imperfect me. Even when I mess up, I am enough. I am loved by you. I am loved by you. Just as I am. Feels good to be loved by you. Just as I am. Feels good to be. Can y'all say that? I am loved. Just as I am. One more time. I am loved.
In prisoner's chains, with bleeding stripes, Paul and Silas prayed that night, and in their pain began to see their chains were loose.
my offering. Take me to the King. Truth is, I'm tired. Options are few. I'm trying to pray, but where are you? I'm all churched out, hurt and abused. I can't fake what's left to do.
Come on.
Truth is, I'm weak, no strength to fight, no tears to cry. Even if I tried, but still my soul refuses to die. One touch will change my life. Take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart's torn in pieces. It's my offering. Lay me at the throne. Leave me there alone to gaze upon your glory and sing to you this song. Please take me to the King. Truth is, it's time to stop playing these games. We need a word for the people's pain. So Lord, speak right now. Let it fall like rain. Oh yeah, we're desperate. We're chasing after you. Oh, no rules, no religion. I've made my decision to run to you, the healer that I need. Take me to the King. Don't have much to bring. My heart's torn to pieces. It's my offering. Lay me at the throne. Leave me there alone to gaze upon your glory and to sing to you this song. Lord, we're in the way. We keep making mistakes. Glory not for us, it's all for you. Take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart's torn to pieces. It's my offering. Leave me there. I wanna gaze upon your glory. Sing to you, to sing to you this song. Take me to the King. Take me to the King. Take me to the King. that I am loved just as I am. One more time. I am loved. In prisoner's chains, with bleeding stripes, Paul and Silas prayed that night, and in their pain began to sing. Their chains were loosed and they were free. I bless your name. I bless your name. I give you honor, give you praise. You are the life, the truth, the way. I bless your name. I bless your name. Some midnight hour, if you should find you're in a prison in your mind, reach out and praise it, find those chains, and they will fall in Jesus' name. We bless your name. We bless your name. We give you honor, give you praise. You are our life, the truth, the way. We bless your name. We bless your name. You are the life, the truth, the way. We bless your name. We bless your name.
Take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart is torn in pieces. It's my offering. Take me to the King. Truth is, I'm tired. Options are few. I'm
Hello to all those watching us on social media. I want to wish you all a very blessed Sabbath day. I'd like to share a few words with you today. A few words. we as a people need to experience the power of the Holy Ghost. We cannot be opportunistic Christians. I don't know about you, but I've prayed too much to go to hell. L'unité et l'amour sincère les uns pour les autres doivent régner. L'essentiel pour nous est d'être un cœur et une âme et de rejeter toute envie et toute malice. Il y a de nouveaux sommets à gravir, de nouvelles vérités à sonder, de nouveaux sujets à étudier. Nous devons sonder nos propres cœurs, fortifier notre repentir et nous préparer par la prière. Nous avons planifié de différentes sortes de programmes qui sont de nature à vous toucher et inspirer vos âmes. This is one of many. Please support us with your prayers and your cooperation. Now let us sing and give God the praise that He alone deserves. Nous chanterons ensemble au numéro 157 et 287. 157, les premières, troisième, quatrième et cinquième strophes. Deux chants suivis. Chantons avec force, car Dieu jusqu'ici nous a secourus. Il nous a gardés pendant toute cette pandémie. Let's make a joyful noise, for God has been good to us. Yes, He has been good to us. Il nous a fait du bien. Chantons avec force, bénissons Dieu par deux cantiques. 87, 287, les premières, troisième et quatrième strophes. Première, troisième et quatrième strophe.
Chers amis, chers internautes, bien-aimés frères et sœurs, là où vous êtes, nous vous invitons à adopter une attitude révérencieuse pour prier. Éternel, notre Dieu, notre bon et tendre Père des cieux, nous bénissons ton saint et grand nom pour ton amour infini envers nous manifesté. Nous te disons merci pour la vie que tu nous donnes, pour la santé, pour le sabbat et pour tes bienfaits. Nous te demandons pardon pour les péchés commis. Alors qu'en cet après-midi, nous nous sommes réunis autour d'une table ronde, autour du thème troubles mentaux et problèmes que troubles mentaux capables sur troubles mentaux qui sont capables de relater sur COVID-19 avec tout problème. Nous te supplions, ô notre Dieu, notre Père, de nous visiter, de nous accompagner et de répandre sur tes enfants tes bénédictions sans mesure. Et spécialement, nous voulons te présenter le panel. Remplis-les de la puissance de ton Saint-Esprit. Bénis chacun de nous. Bénis le groupe Prestime. Bénis les jeunes qui sont là avec nous. Visite-nous, Père des cieux. Assiste-nous par ton Saint-Esprit et permets que ce programme soit une bénédiction pour chacun de nous. En Jésus, nous te prions, lui qui vit et demeure au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Hello, everyone. We're so glad to have you watching us and attending here as well. On behalf of the health department team here at Hebron, we would like to welcome you. As you know, this month is designated to mental health. While everyone all around are educating others about how to maintain their health and identify mental illness, we too do not want to pass on this opportunity in joining such a vital endeavor. As Christians, it is not only important that we have spiritual well-being, but also physical and mental. Now, I am glad to introduce our moderators for this afternoon. Stephanie Pierre Valcourt and Dr. Muller Saint-Pré. Moi, voulais souhaiter la bienvenue à tout le monde qui suit nous le moment ça, le programme que nous gagnons sur mental health là, dans Hébron. Nous connaissons que moi ça désigné pour mental health et tout le monde tout partout a parlé sur qui gens pour nous identifier problème mental et qui gens pour nous maintenir et santé mentale. Et nous pas voulons le moment ça qui vraiment opportun pour éducation sur mental health. Nous pas voulons manquer opportunité ça. C'est ça fait nous un programme ça pour nous. Nous voulons pour nous gagner santé spirituelle, santé physique et santé mentale. Et je voulais introduire modérateur pour après-midi qui Stéphanie Pierre Valcourt et Dr. Muller Saint-Pré. Merci.
Nous avons pasteur Moïse Manigal. Il a un doctorat dans le bien-être social et une maîtrise en théologie, Master in Divinity et une maîtrise en théologie. Nous le connaissons bien et nous l'apprécions. Il est humble de cœur, une vertu que peu de pasteurs et de leaders font preuve de nos jours. Et c'est une grâce, c'est une bénédiction. Merci, docteur Pasteur, pour avoir répondu à notre appel. Tu accomplis ta mission très consciencieusement. Que Dieu te bénisse.
Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, I am pleased to present one of our youth. Kimberly Ferdinand graduated from the Borough of Manhattan Community College with her associate's degree in health professions and a minor in biology with a GPA of 3.9. She is currently pursuing her bachelor's in nursing from the College of Staten Island with a minor in social work. She is a part of the Hebron Youth Praise Team, as well as an integral part of the health department here at Hebron. Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing your perspective this evening on this issue as a young adult.
Nous avons aussi Dr Obed Maniga, le petit frère de notre cher pasteur. Il est aussi éduqué et épanoui que son frère. Il a un baccalauréat en théologie, bachelor in theology, une maîtrise dans le bien-être social ou travail social, master in social work, et un doctorat en psychologie, doctor in psychology. J'aime voir mes gens exceller. I love to see my people excel. Laissez ces deux être un facteur de motivation pour nos jeunes, car vouloir, c'est pouvoir. Il n'y a pas de raccourci pour aller là où ça vaut la peine d'aller. There's no shortcut, young people. There's no shortcut going anywhere that's worth going. À vaillant cœur, rien n'est possible. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Thank you, Dr. Obed. Dr. Daphne Stephenson Valcourt. She has an impressive biography.
She did her undergraduate studies in education, youth, and community.
And yes, she graduated with honor.
She did her graduate studies in family therapy and has worked with psychiatrically challenged youth. She received her doctorate at Columbia University and another in Christian psychology.
She is a scholar.
She is currently an adjunct teacher at LIU and has a private practice as a licensed marriage and family therapist.
She is a very warm person. I remember the first time I spoke to her, the first words she uttered, I am pleased to help.
Amen.
That's what she said. She don't know me, I don't know her. That was our first talk. I am pleased to help. That should be the motto of every Christian, every one of us. Every one of us. Dr. Valcourt, you are a blessing. Thank you. May God multiply your talents and may you continue to be a blessing. May your lineage, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, may they all be blessed. Our deepest gratitude. And now we will have Dr. Valcourt will start first with the presentation. She will be followed by Kimberly Ferdinand, and then it will be Dr. Obed Maniga, and then our pastor will be the last one. And after that, we will have some questions and answers. So whatever you hear, whatever you don't understand, write it down, and at the end, we will collect the questions, and then we will try to give you an answer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, our online viewers. This afternoon, looking at COVID and healthy family relationships. We know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and of course, COVID has forced us to pay attention to mental illness and mental health. In my practice, I'm seeing a lot more young people and young adults who are experiencing depression and anxiety. And of course, that's to be expected because developmentally, young people are at the stage when they need to be interacting with others. Peer relationships are extremely important during the adolescent years and the young adulthood years because that's when, you're looking for partners and so on. So it's not unusual to see young people experiencing depression and anxiety at this time. Of course, depression and anxiety are made worse, and one of my colleagues is going to be focusing on trauma. Depression and anxiety, of course, are made worse with trauma, right? If you've experienced layers of trauma with COVID, it's going to really heighten your depression and your anxiety. But of course, I'm not focusing today on depression and anxiety. I'm focusing on healthy family relationships because the family is considered the microcosm of the wider society. In other words, it's that small unit that interacts with other systems, right? Within, on a wider context. So you have the microsystem, the mesosystem, and the macrosystem. And government policies impact families. And we've seen that during COVID, right? Our relationships are no longer the same. Parents have become teachers. Parents have to take care of their babies now instead of taking them to daycare. So there have been changes in the family relationships as a result of COVID. COVID has impacted us psychologically, financially. Some people have lost jobs. Some people have basically, spiritually, we are not able to attend church the way we used to. So that impacts social relations and the traditions that we're used to. So it's important for us to be aware that all of these systems that we interact with are impacted as a result of COVID. COVID has impacted our lives tremendously. It has been over a year now since the lockdown, and this new norm has brought a lot of stress and uncertainty. When is this going to end, we wonder. We're hopeful that with the vaccine, that by July, we will be back to some level of normalcy. But will we? We don't know, all right? We just have to pray that we will see that. Of course, this new norm has brought, as I said, a lot of stress, and we have to continue to practice social distancing with families and friends. And they say now we don't need to wear a mask anymore, so, that's it. Well, except in large crowds, we need to still continue to protect ourselves. It is not normal for us to be walking around with a mask. It's not normal for us to social distance. And this uncertainty that we're experiencing leads to a feeling of lack of control and, for some, depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety.
So
Yes.
we're going to be covering a lot today. N'a pas couvrir en pile information aujourd'hui. Nous focus surtout sur information qui appropriée avec famille. Nous voyons que le moment ça spécialement grand pile monde qui affecté, en pile li ouais en pile ti monde la practice li, mais au lieu li focus sur ti monde ou bien ça qu'a privé la practice spécialement li vle focus sur famille. So tout ça le parler nous après focus sur COVID et qui gens nous ka joindre santé la famille nous.
Okay, all right. So as I mentioned before, you know, 2020 has been a very, very challenging year. 2020 has been a very, very challenging year. And of course, we with COVID now, we've lost certain traditions. All right, going to church every Sabbath, going to weddings, family gatherings for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and traditions that bring us together and help our sense of social and mental well-being. We're not able to do that right now.
Nous,
Okay?
avec COVID, nous, que en pile bagay que nous te qu'on fait dans le passé, nous pas qu'à faire encore. Nous pas qu'à venir l'église, nous pas qu'à aller dans faire la cérémonie mariage. Tout bagay ça que nous te qu'on fait avant, nous pas qu'à faire. Et ça porter on vient causer un problème pour nous-mêmes.
Of course, the most difficult part of COVID is losing a loved one. Many of us may have lost loved ones as a result of COVID or during COVID. I lost five family members last year, and it was very difficult for me because one of those individuals was my father and then my mother-in-law as well. And that was difficult for me. All right?
Plus gros problème qui arrivait pendant Covid, c'est que nous perdu monde. Les mêmes particulièrement perdu 5 membres de la famille. Premier une nan qui était plus difficile, c'était papa li, et then après ça on l'autre membre cher la famille. Perdu un membre de la famille nous vraiment difficile.
Yes. And you know, when we grieve, we tend to want to grieve together, right? We want to hug, we want to touch. That's the normal way that we grieve. But with COVID, we're told that we should do have social distance. So we don't touch and hug the way that we would normally.
Là nous mort nous bien grieve, là ou fin perdu un monde et ou souhaiter que ou ta fait avec l'autre monde entouré ou besoin monde pour moyen qui pour consoler mais avec Covid ou pas joindre ça parce que au mando pour distancer.
Yes. And according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, many families are actually experiencing grief during COVID, but they're not aware that grief is what they're experiencing. They just know they don't feel right, and something isn't right. It is important to give the feeling a name, because once you give the feeling a name, it can be a relief to actually know, yes, this is what I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing grief.
Gan pile moun qui a senti grief le moment perte le moment et Covid mais yo pas même reconnaître c'est que c'est ça y a senti et ça cause un problème li bon pour les ou senti on bagay ou ka mettre un nom avec ça senti mais parce que moun sa pas ka définir qui ça yo senti yo juste senti que m'pa senti bien gon bagay qui anormal mais yo pas ka identifier li important là ou gon problème pour ka identifier li
So grief is a normal response to loss during or after a disaster or other traumatic event. Grief can happen in response to loss of life, as well as loss of traditions or drastic changes in our daily routines and ways of life that usually bring us comfort and a feeling of stability as we are experiencing with COVID right now. We don't feel right. We just feel unstable. And so we have grief reactions. Go ahead.
Leur senti grief, c'est un sentiment normal lié que corps naturellement est expérimenté mais à cause de gens covidien ou vinn pas qu'à expérimenter gens li supposé et ça vient causer un problème.
So, I mean, there are many phases of grief and loss. And of course, no two people experience grief the same way. The most painful loss, and I repeat this one again, the most painful loss is ambiguous loss, as we're experiencing now during COVID.
Il y a différents kind of perte, ça qui plus difficile.
Ambiguous.
Ça qui tout le monde expérimenté perte différemment. Mais perte qui est plus difficile, c'est perte que ou pas qu'à manier, ou pas qu'à identifier vraiment, et c'est ça n'a expérimenté là dans période ça.
And of course, ambiguous loss is loss without any clear understanding or closure. Some of us lost family members. They went to the hospital and never came back home. That's ambiguous loss. There's no closure. You know, you weren't able to say goodbye the way you should. You weren't able to say, maybe if it's something you wanted to say to that person before the person's passing, you weren't able to do that. So it's ambiguous. It's ambiguous because there's no real clear understanding of what happened and there's no closure to that.
Avec perte qui est flou ça que ou pas ka vraiment identifier ça dans moment ça passé en pile moun qui perdi un membre cher à yo même moun à l'hôpital et moun juste pas tourner des gon bagay yo te besoin di yo te vle ouais encore mais yo pas capable et ça fait yo pas ka porter en fermeture en vrai détachement à moun parce que yo pas vinn well encore et ça cause un gros problème.
So this type of loss delays and complicates the process of grieving. So if you've experienced this type of loss, you'll probably find that your grieving process is very different from the norm. All right.
Si vous expérimentez et perdre comme ça côté ou pas qu'à mettre en fermeture côté ou pas qu'à ouais moun nan ou pas qu'à dire au revoir li permettre que ou pas qu'à fin et grieve Jean ou t'a supposé et c'est ça qui cause problème.
So knowing that grief goes through phases, and you know it's not sort of just a regular phase, but it goes through phases, right? There's denial, there's anger, there's bargaining, and of course there's acceptance, depression, and then acceptance. So there are phases of grief that we go through, and it's good to know that there are phases that we will go through because we can always say, well, this too will pass. This too will pass.
Il y a différentes phases dans perdu un monde que wap crier wap gen ou gen denial côté ou dit ah moun n'a pas mourir vrai gen bargaining côté ou dit que oh m'a bay on bagay pour yo ka remettre moun nan ka tourner gen différentes phases et les gen différentes phases li bon parce que ou ka penser que gen étape éventuellement ça a passé tout.
So some of the common grief reactions that you might experience are shock. You know, your relative goes to the hospital and then they don't come back. That's shock. And you may go into denial. No, this is not true. This can't be true. This can't be real. Or disbelief or denial. And it can last for months. This phase of grieving can last for months.
Parti dans phase côté que moun à l'hôpital et then moun n'a pas tourné ou ka choqué ou ka dit que non ça pas arrivé vrai et phase ça ka arrivé li ka ou ka durer en pile temps là-dedans so chaque phase yo pa gon set temps pour moun rete là-dedans.
Okay. And so it's not helpful to say to someone who is in denial, oh, get over it. No, it's not. It's hard for someone who has experienced loss, and it's as a shock, especially if it's ambiguous loss. All right, so it's important not to say get over it, or it's about time now you forget about it, okay? Because it really doesn't work that way. Go ahead.
Les moun la phase ça côté yo pas quoi et incident arrivé li pas approprié li pas bon pour dire moun c'est pour suspendre senti ça c'est pour aller en avant ou pas supposé dire ça parce que ça pas aider moun nan du tout.
Okay. So some people may experience anxiety because of the layers of grief and loss not mourned. So if you lose a loved one during COVID, where you don't have the opportunity to grieve appropriately, and then you experienced grief before or loss before that you never really grieved properly, you'll find yourself probably becoming a lot more anxious because of the layers of grief and loss not mourned.
Gon l'autre aspect l'on perdu un monde tout qui relè anxiété. Gen des fois moun nan vin senti anxiété pas seulement parce que li perdu un monde que li pas ouais encore, mais parce que li te ka perdu un monde déjà et puis ça vient ajouter sous li et li vin senti que li vin senti anxiété.
So you may find yourself becoming a lot more cautious than usual. Family members go out and you start, okay, hurry up, get back. You know, you're worried about family members. Someone takes a drive and you're worried about them coming back alive. So your anxiety level will be a little bit higher than the norm. Okay.
Jean anxiété ça ka manifester ou ka senti que un moun qui cher ou même ka pral sorti et ou vinn senti ou anxieuse ou vle moun nan getan tourner ou demander qui est la vini parce que ou perdu li. Tout ça c'est anxiété que ou senti à cause de perte que ou te gen ko pat fin grieve de li.
And distress is another grief reaction that you might experience. And distress is feeling like there's a hole in the heart. You know, you feel like there's this hole there that just cannot be filled. And you just don't know how to fill it.
L'autre sentiment qu'a senti c'est détresse. Détresse son sentiment que ou senti ou gon tout dans cœur et ou pas qu'à remplir tout son vide ou gain qui était sans satisfait.
Okay. And of course there are those who may feel a lot of anger at the person who has passed away because you felt maybe they didn't take care of themselves, or even anger at God. You know, wondering why would God take a loved one from you? Someone who's dear to you. Why would God do that? So you may find yourself being angry at God.
L'autre sentiment ou ka senti c'est ou fâché que avec moun nan qui mourir ou bien ou fâché à bon Dieu ou a demander ou fâché à moun parce que dit pour ça moun nan pas prend plus bien soin de tête li ou bien ou fâché à bon Dieu ou dit pour ça bon Dieu prend moun ça l'en même.
Okay. So if someone is angry at God, it's not helpful to say to that person, oh, you shouldn't be angry at God. You know, that's a sin, and so on. The person is hurting. They're experiencing pain. It's more important for you to empathize with the pain that they're feeling. You could say something like, it must be painful for you to lose a loved one, isn't it? And by saying that, what you're doing is helping the person to open up and to speak about the pain and the hurt that they're experiencing.
Si un moun senti que li fâché à bon Dieu, li pas bon pour dire moun non, oh si pour so fâché à bon Dieu, ou pas supposé gen sentiment ça. Li mieux que ou parler avec moun nan pour ouais qui côté douleur lan sorti pour moun nan ka exprimer tête li pour l'expliquer pour qui ça senti ça. Ou ka di bagay konkou li semblait que ou senti en pile douleur à cause de ça passé là.
Okay. So as you go through the grief process, you will find yourself experiencing periods of sadness. Sometimes you're crying and you just don't even know why you're crying.
Gen des fois pendant ou grieve ou senti que pendant temps ou ka senti ou triste et ou commencer à crier ou pas même kon pour qui ça ou à crier.
Okay, so you may experience headaches. You know, you're getting headaches and you think, where did this come from? Loss of sleep, not being able to sleep at night.
Ou ka senti que ou gen tête fait mal et ou ka senti que ou pas ka dormir le soir.
And you may have loss of appetite, or you find yourself eating a lot more than usual. All right? So it's all part of the grief process.
Ou bien ou ka senti que ou pas sous manger ou pas vle manger, ou bien ou ka senti ou vle manger en tout temps, ou manger plus que ou habitué. Tout ça c'est il fait partie de processus perte de un membre cher ou même.
So you may even find yourself bargaining with God. Okay, God, you know, if you help me to get through this, I promise you I'll go back to church. Or if you help me to get through this, I promise you I'll do X, Y, and Z. So you may find yourself bargaining with God.
Ou ka joine tête ou à bargain dans le sens que ou dit bon Dieu si ou fait tel bagay pour moi m'a tourner l'église, si ou retourner moun nan m'a fait tel bagay. Si bon Dieu bon bagay ou même moi ballon bagay comme ça fait partie de grieving process là tout.
And the final stage, of course, is the acceptance stage. That's the stage where you accept that, yes, my loved one is gone. And you can actually talk about that loved one in a way that you may become teary at times talking about that loved one, but there's more acceptance of the loss.
L'autre partie et partie finale non, c'est acceptation. Ou vient accepter que moun nan perdu, que moun nan passé et ou vient commencer li style fort triste leur penser à yo même ou ka crier leur penser à yo mais ou quoi que il était arrivé et ou accepter li.
So identify that you're grieving is the first step to your recovery. Okay?
Identifier que wap grieve c'est premier pas dans et refaire.
So what you also can do at this time is to communicate your feelings with friends. Talk about your feelings and encourage someone who's lost a loved one to talk about that loved one. It's you don't want to shut down the conversation about the loved one. You actually want to encourage the person to talk about the loved one because it's a way of helping them to grieve.
So, l'important que les on moun perdi, on moun que li gen on zami, on moun que li ka parler à propos de qui ça le senti, de moun nan que li perdi. Li important que li gen moun pour li parler. So pas quitter li fermer bouche li pour retirer col sous moun mais quitter parler avec moun de gens senti li.
Okay. So basically, another thing you can do, because as I said, with the depression, serotonin really is a feel-good hormone, right? So sunshine encourages serotonin. So you want to spend as much time as possible in the sunshine. Get sunshine, sunlight. That will help with your depression as well.
On bagay ki ka edo, c'est un chemical que cerveau et produit qui est le sérotonine et gens que ou ka joindre c'est si ou lan dehors côté gen soleil. So make sure que ou sorti dehors ou soleil lan et soleil lan ka bat sou ça edo sentir mieux.
See, when you're feeling depressed, you have a tendency to just want to stay indoors, not do anything, not go out. When in fact, it will help you just to feel better to go outside and get some sunshine.
L'on senti ou triste comme ça, plupart des fois ou vle rester en dedans, ou vle fermer porte, ou vle rester en dedans chamon, mais li pas bon pour, li mieux que ou sorti dehors pour joindre soleil là, pour joindre dans la nature pour la force sentir mieux.
And of course, there are various platforms that you can use to stay connected. Staying connected with family members and friends is very important. At my church, we have a Thursday evening check-in and chat where you can just call, and there are 4 of us there just, basically sitting there, and we talk. We talk about whatever topics are current. And so anyone can call in and just talk. Or just listening.
En l'autre bagay qui bon c'est connecter avec moun, gen ressources dehors qui permettent que moun ka juste parler qui ont senti li gen un système dans l'église li côté yo permettre chaque jeudi pour moun vini pour yo ka relé yo parler de n'importe ça yo vle n'importe conversation et gon moun la ka parler avec yo.
Okay. I'm not sure how much more time I have, but in terms of temperament, one of the things it's important to be aware of is that the time we finished. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to go on to our temperament. I think it's important for us to remember that God cares, and there are no temptation has overtaken you except as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able, but will, with the temptation, also make a way of escape.
Pas continuer plus parce que me connais l'heure moins arrivé mais me voulais quitter nous avec verset ça qui sorti dans 1 Corinthiens 10 verset 13 côté li parler et m'a paraphrasé côté bon Dieu pas ban nous aucune tentation qui plus que nous-mêmes mais li faithful côté li permet avec chaque tentation pour li ban nous en route pour nous esquiver tentation en tout.
Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
Merci tous.
evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our mental health segment today. And also today, my name is Kimberly, and I'm really going to focus on today the mental health issues that we have with the youth in our society today and in our culture today. I feel like the youth in our culture, being Blacks and Caribbean, we also don't seem to touch on the mental illnesses the youth have more often. We think that they're just going through a phase, or they're just dealing with things that are not as important because they have a roof to sleep under, they have clothes on their backs. But really, we are deteriorating the mental health of the youth nowadays in every culture. I think the reason is because as Black people, we don't believe in a mental disorder. We don't believe it's real because we can't see it. We can't go to the doctor and they can't say, okay, here is something to fix it, because we all know there's no cure for most mental disorders. A mental disorder is a wide range of conditions that affect the mood, thinking, and behavior. Behavior and mental disorders go hand in hand, because you can't ask someone who's depressed to be all cheerful and happy and to get over it, because they mentally cannot do it. Just the same way as a disability, you wouldn't ask someone in a wheelchair to get up and walk or run. I'm going to focus mainly today on depression, because as a youth growing up, depression was one of those mental illnesses a lot of people disregarded and looked past because they didn't believe you could be sad chronically for so long, and they believed there was always some other thing that was making us just act out. Depression is a mental condition characterized by feelings of severe dejection, typically also with feelings of inadequacy and guilt, often accompanied by the lack of energy and disturbance of appetite and sleep. So you're seeing that just depression can affect the way you eat, the way you interact, the way you behave, and simply the way you see the world through your eyes. There is growing evidence that several parts of the brain shrink in people with depression. So now it's no longer something in your head, it's physical. It physically deteriorates our brains when we are chronically depressed. It kills brain tissues rapidly. And over time, someone who has been depressed and left untreated can lead to dementia. So as you can see, it's very, very serious for a teen or a young person growing in a church environment who's been depressed for so long. You think they're gonna get over it, they're gonna grow out of it, or they could just simply forget about it. But over time, they can get dementia. And that's something that's not curable at all. So before it gets to those points, we need to address that, yes, we're teenagers and we don't have as much responsibilities as some of the adults may have, but we do have things that bothers us, things that make us feel not as good about ourselves. For example, growing up, I grew up in Hebron and I grew up Adventist, and I grew up from the Caribbean. In the Caribbean culture, we seem to not touch on the fact that depression is real and that it can affect children to the point where it changes their whole entire personalities. For instance, for example, I'm a very outgoing and happy person, but I've been dealing with depression since I was about 13. And sometimes it feels like you're screaming in a room full of people and they cannot hear you. And that damages you a little bit, because now you're trying to think, am I normal? Is this okay? Let me just shove this back inside of me and see maybe if I can just, live with it. Not knowing that as I was growing up feeling this way and not being able to talk to anybody about it, or not being able to feel like I was normal, my characteristics changed from being always outgoing and happy to being someone who didn't really want to interact with people, being the type of person who didn't really want to enjoy the things that I used to enjoy. As an adult, you should be able to see when your child, or any child that you are, interacting with, is screaming for help, because the first signs of depression aren't, the crying and the suicide. The first signs of depression are they're not eating the favorite foods, they're not wearing the favorite colors, they're not wanting to interact with the social groups that they're usually interacting with. It could also be, slight things that we don't notice, like trying to wear certain colors that don't attract too much attention, things that we don't really notice. In the Caribbean culture, we need to put more of a foot down that this is real, because the second leading cause of death from teenagers from 18 to 24 is suicide. And as they checked out, a lot of these suicidal people were depressed, or they did have anxiety, or they did have some type of mental disorder that caused them to get that way first. And there were a lot of cries for help that nobody noticed, because if it's not a broken leg or if it's not a broken neck, we think it's not important. We think we can get over it, and it's not real. Dealing with depression as a youth is so hard, especially growing up Adventist, because we don't touch on it as much as we're supposed to. We don't pay attention to it at all, actually. And as much as we want to have, parents want to say, oh, you don't have no bills, you don't have all the extra things that would make an adult sad, but we have to go interact with a room of 30 kids every single day and fit into that place knowing that we feel indifferent. And having depression made me feel indifferent. And it made me feel more indifferent because everyone made an indifference towards it. And I think that's the thing that really deteriorates young black adults. The black young adults nowadays are dying by the hundreds because we overlook the mental aspect of our health. And a lot of people think we could put our mental health in the back seat, and we cannot put our mental health in the back seat because growing up, your mental has to come first at all times. You always want to do something that makes you happy or do something that you know you're going to be doing for a long term. As I grew up, I understood depression wasn't something that was a burden. It was something that was put in my life as an obstacle so that I could be able to get on stage just like this and speak about it and advocate for it, that depression is real, but it's not something that can keep you down. You can talk to people. You can get help, and getting help doesn't always mean that you're an addict, or getting help doesn't always mean that you're doing drugs. Just because you tell someone, oh yeah, I'm going to go into rehab for a little while, or I'm going to go to therapy, doesn't mean that you should be ashamed of getting help. It's included in your medical insurance. You might as well get it, right? Growing up black and Adventist, I felt a lot of shame, telling certain people, oh yeah, I'm going to be gone for a little while because I'm going to go, get some help for my issues. And, as adults, they're like, oh, what are you getting help for? What do you, things like that. And it's like, you have to know when to put your foot down and be like, I have a problem. And this problem is not only affecting the way I feel, but the way I think, the way I interact, and it's affecting my physical. And over time, untreated depression, it becomes physical. It's real. I had to realize my depression wasn't something that was all of me. I was still Kimberly, but I was Kimberly who had depression. I was Kimberly who didn't always want to socialize because I always felt sad. And depression is like a black cloud. It follows you everywhere. Sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes it rains on your whole entire day. Sometimes you can't get up in the morning because you just feel so sad. Sometimes you don't want to brush your hair because it's so bad. There are more than one type of depression. There's clinical depression. It's a mental health disorder characterized by persistent depressed moods or loss of interest in activities, causing significant impairment in daily life. This depression is something most people are diagnosed with because most people were raised with depression, and they don't know anything else but depression, and they don't know that they can get help or they can talk to people. So it becomes clinical. It doesn't just start off bad, it gets bad. And before it gets bad, we need to instill in our young people's minds that it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to have feelings. It's okay to feel like, the whole world is against you, but it's also okay to talk about it. We make it seem like feelings and emotions are something that's just not real, and that's something that makes us weak. And for some people, feelings and emotions is everything that makes them up. I'm a very emotional person. So growing up in a community that looked at emotions as something that should be disregarded was very detrimental to the way I grew up, the way I saw the world, and the way I behaved. A lot of people that grew up with me, they knew me as someone that, younger, I was very juvenile. I was very angry and always lashing out, but nobody ever came to ask me, why are you like this? What caused you to be so angry? What caused you to be so sad? You understand? They always thought, oh yeah, tifisa desor, or all of those things, but none of the elders I grew up with ever asked me, what's going on? Talk to me. They always instilled judgment instead of seeing where it was all rooting from. And some people, they cannot get past that, and they unfortunately commit suicide. But before it gets to that point, we need to learn to see the signs, because the signs are very blatant. They're in our faces. We see a whole lot of young Adventist adults leave the church, and not because, they had a baby or because, they got rebuked. They left the church because they're dealing with some serious mental disabilities that a lot of us do not take into concern. And we're going to continue losing youth, either to suicide or to the world, because they believe if I'm Adventist and I'm around all these people that claim to be about love, but they can't see that I'm screaming for help, then what's the point of being Adventist? What's the point of staying in a community that doesn't realize when I'm crying out for help?
Did you also know that suicide in black young adults is 7.3% higher than suicide in white young adults? They feel that the Caucasian race, their parents and their lineage, they're open to, let's talk about it. Let's get you some help. You know, you're acting out. You know, this is not because, you know, you're just a bad kid. But growing up black, let's be honest, you act out of way in any way and automatically you're dizzled, or, you know, there's something wrong with you, or ufu. They don't think, oh, you know, I'm an adult and this is a child acting crazy, let me talk to them. They don't think that. And that's where we lose everything. We lose the race before we even start. And honestly, I've been depressed for about 7-8 years now. And as an adult now, I am learning to get over it, not get over it, but deal with my issues. I'm learning to forgive. I'm learning the steps it takes to overcome depression. And a lot of young adults don't have the strength that I have. A lot of young adults, their mental capacity is not as much as the rest of us, and they will fold and they will bend and they eventually will break, and the fault is on the adults. The fault is on the people that they live with every day that didn't see the signs. The faults are on the older sisters or the people in the church. I grew up around a whole lot of you guys, and none of you probably knew I was dealing with depression besides close family members. A lot of the adults here called me, you know, Diz and all of that, but really it was something that was wrong with me. And I learned there's no shame to that, because we all go through separate battles and obstacles, and I learned that depression was one of my battles that God gave me personally, because he knew I was strong enough to overcome it, and he knew that I would be the perfect advocate to speak out about depression and to speak out that it's real and it hurts. It hurts physically, it hurts mentally, and it hurts all relationships that you interact with, because you always have, because depression doesn't only mean you're sad. Depression can mean anxiety. Depression can mean a whole bunch of other things, OCD. Depression leads into so many other things that it's not just feeling sad and crying over, you know, a lost boyfriend or not getting what you wanted. Sometimes it's that chest pain where you feel like, why? Just, you know, why do I even have to keep going to school? Why do I even have to keep coming to church? Like, why? It makes no sense. And honestly, the black culture is leading in suicide rates, because the black culture believes because we are, you know, housed and fed and clothed, that's all the obligations that, you know, they're supposed to give us. But really, they don't nourish our dreams. They don't nourish our thoughts and our, you know, our good ideas. If you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you're pushed to the side. If you want to be an artist or a singer, they don't care what you want to be. And that's so detrimental, because if I wanted to be a singer and my mom is telling me, oh no, you have to be a doctor, now I'm going to feel like, but I don't know how to be a doctor. Boom. That's already sign number one. Now I'm like, I don't know how to be a doctor and I don't love it. Now I'm stuck in a whole bunch of college courses being a doctor and I hate it, leading into my depression. Now I'm depressed because I can't be a singer. Now my mother thinks, oh, you know, she's just mad because she can't be a singer. But really, I'm sad because I cannot fit into a role that was just handed down to me. I cannot conform to what the society of the Caribbean culture wants me to be. And a lot of the expectations we put on young black people is ridiculous, because you would never see a Caucasian mother tell their child they can't be an artist. They're everywhere. You can never see a Caucasian parent tell their child, oh, you have to be a doctor, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a lawyer. They support all their dreams, and once any Caucasian sees that their children is even acting out any type of way, they have family meetings. They have adults they can go to. They have journals that they're, you know, encouraged to write about. But at home, in the black culture, it's, all this world is about is making money. It's not about happiness. It's not about what you want to do. It's what you have to do. But what we have to do is focus on mental illnesses and focus on depression is real. Anxiety is real. Those things are so real, they affect your brain. You can't see your brain. You can't touch your brain. But you know it's real, right? You know it's in there. You know it's functioning, right? Because your body wakes up every day and it uses it. So why can't we see that someone who doesn't want to wake up out their bed for weeks, that was originally a happy person, is sick? Why can't we see that the young lady who got pregnant out of wedlock and who was not rebuked and now is suicidal because she was shunned for a mistake that she made? Why can't we see that the young children that's running around with fighting, going to prison all the time, it's rooted from, you know, being denied access to a society that they no longer conform to? We need to be able to see it and to see that we are at fault. There's nobody else to blame but ourselves. There's no, oh, yeah, your friends are, intimidating you to do this. There's no, oh, yeah, this outside person. No, it's you. And the minute we start accepting that we are the cause of our problems is when we're going to be able to be like, we got to fix this. We have to come together and encourage our youth to talk about our feelings, because our feelings are real. Depression is real, and I am living proof that you can overcome depression, but not everybody will overcome depression untreated. Not everybody, has that will to live. Not everybody is gonna, have a few attempts and then they're just like, okay, well, I wanna be, better now, so I'm gonna better myself. Some people do need therapy. Some people do need a hug nowadays. Some people do need a nurturing parent they can go to. They need a home environment where they feel like they can cry it out and they won't be looked at like weak. Because the way depression comes, it comes very subtle. It doesn't just hit you with sadness. It seeps into you. It becomes regular daily tasks. It becomes something that becomes a norm. And growing up, depression was a norm for me. It was something that was regular. It was, oh yeah, I'm depressed, but it's whatever. I'm depressed, but this is regular for me. But depression isn't supposed to be regular. We're not supposed to be dying because of depression, because of anxiety or OCD. Like, there's so many other ways we could die. We can get hit by a bus, but no, the leading cause of all our culture is suicide. And that should be an eye-opener. The numbers are there, the statistics are there, but we just choose to look away because we believe it's something else. We believe that, oh, the person is crazy, the person is this and that. But really, it's us that's crazy for believing that someone can act out just out of nowhere. We're all humans, we all see things different ways, but at the same time, we need to see that if the numbers are there and the data is matching, that this is the way that our race is getting picked off, we need to stand up and be like, maybe, the Caucasians aren't lying. Maybe their numbers are real. Maybe depression is real. Maybe anxiety is real. Maybe this kid that no longer comes to church is not just a bad kid. Maybe they're dealing with some mental disorder that they cannot overcome. Maybe that temptation that they were given or that obstacle they were given is too hard of a burden for them to do it themselves. That's all for today.
So far this evening, I have heard quite a bit about mental health, its impact, and how we as a nation, as a culture, as a people, have dealt with mental health issues. Mais nous-mêmes, comme adventistes haïtiens, nous réalisons que nous allons chez le docteur pour n'importe maladie nous souffrir. Nous visitons toute qualité spécialiste pour n'importe ça un docteur recommandé ou n'a souffrir d'eux. Mais l'arrivée à un point côté nous avons un problème. Il est impossible pour nous dormir le soir. Nous pas qu'à manger. Nous worry et baguette la tourmenter nous. Nous pas de solution. Si on mentionné pour aller à un docteur, un psychologue, un psychiatre, un social worker, un counselor, nous dit non, m'ba fou. Mais bon Dieu créé spécialiste pour toute baguette qui gagne. Si c'est un pied, un orteil qui est affecté, bon Dieu crée un spécialiste pour ça. Bon Dieu crée un spécialiste pour cœur, lungs, 9, toute bagaille possible. Bon Dieu also créé mental health specialists. When it comes to trauma, là nous parler de trauma. Toutes sortes de pensées, toutes sortes de réactions montent dans l'esprit. But the clinical definition of trauma, it's a psychological distress. C'est un choc qui arrive, qui frappe, et nous pas expecter pour choc ça arriver, il tourmente nous, l'affecte nous, and it becomes so disturbing to our mind, our body, it causes certain reaction to occur. Nous-mêmes comme adultes, if we experience a traumatic event, it affects us. Most children, when they experience a traumatic event, it lingers. Even if they are not talking about it, it affects them. And this is where a child who's been traumatized tend to act out. They tend to misbehave. And our solution and the answer we tend to have for such a behavior is, as the young lady mentioned, Timona désordre. Nous gagnons pour nous réprimander, pour nous venir plus sévère avec lui. When in fact, it is a cry for help sometimes. And we miss to pick up the signals. So a child that's been traumatized, it tends to affect the mind, the developmental aspect of the mind. The mind, instead of maturing the way it's supposed to, it's shrinking to some degree. It doesn't develop as normally as a child who's never been traumatized. Keep in mind, not every experience you have may be considered as traumatic for some. They say you could have 5 individuals standing at the street corner and they notice an accident. Each one will have a different perspective. Each one of the witnesses will have a different, not only perspective, but it will impact them differently. So they say when traumatic experience occurs early in life, many aspects of development are disrupted, resulting in a loss of core cognitive, interpersonal, and self-regulation capacity, which means the child that's acting out, that experienced a traumatic experience, whether it was a rape, sexual abuse, physical abuse, or witnessing domestic violence, it will affect the child cognitively, mentally. The child will never be the same after witnessing such an event. Trauma results from the individual's response to a highly stressful event. Qui vle di que yon ti moun gen wè nan machine et yon l'autre machine sou ti kote, li frappe machine nan, li ka affecte ti moun sa. Tandis que yon l'autre, li pa affecte. Okay? And as time goes by, you tend to realize and you've come to see the behavior change. Yon ti moun ki te toujou tranquille, vini yon ti moun ki réellement uncontrollable, angry, always getting into physical confrontations, and in and out of trouble with the law. And the law, no one can quite understand what's going on with this child. I take example with the earthquake that occurred in Haiti. A lot of the children growing up, experiencing the earthquake, some were able to leave Haiti, come to the United States and other countries. They are not the same. They've lost their homeland, what they are used to, and all of a sudden they are introduced to a foreign country, having to learn a foreign language and experiencing a foreign lifestyle. But they never had the opportunity to deal with the traumatic event that occurred in Haiti. It affects them. And out of the studies that was conducted, that has been that I have participated in, a few of them ended up in the judicial system shortly after arriving in the United States, simply because they didn't understand and they didn't know how to react to whatever that was going on. I remember, je me songe m'interview yon jeune qui sont Haïti. Pendant ma parle avec lui, demandé lui qui raison qui fait police toujours à rentrer la caillou et qui raison qui fait ou toujours un problème dans l'école. And the teachers complain that this young man, when he comes to school, instead of learning, he's sleeping. So if I go into too much details, I will say this. In my conversation with him, I've learned he cannot sleep at night. He rather wander the street instead of going to sleep. Why? Because every time he goes to sleep, he relived the earthquake. He relived the fact that he was pinned under the concrete in Haiti. His legs were basically crushed. By the grace of God, he didn't lose his limb. He was able to walk. But every time he goes to sleep, he recalled that memory. And that memory was so fresh and so vivid, it prevented him from falling asleep. So he walks the street of New York, walks all around, and plenty of time, the police would pick him up. So I could give you countless of examples of how trauma tend to impact young people, young mind. But we're not going to stay there. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened when people who's experienced traumatic events have the necessary supportive environment to help them grow versus those that doesn't have it. The ones with the supporting event structure, such as a strong church body that support the young person, the adult, the person experiencing the trauma, tend to do much better than an environment where they're not supported. The young lady mentioned a hug. You know, because of COVID, we cannot hug each other. But do you know hugs are the most therapeutic moment one can spend? If I'm crying, no matter what, someone comes and hugs me, I feel like someone cares. And by the way, I must tell you, the preacher in me says that mental health is also written in the Bible. Depression is written in the Bible. So we don't have to be afraid of it as Christians. God is able to do anything and everything. But in the Bible, it set up examples for us to follow. Elijah, after standing up there, fought the cause of God, and then he heard the message I said before the night fall. The same thing you did to those servants of mine, I will do to you. He took off running. He was so scared, he was depressed, he hid himself in a cave, but God in his mercy fed him, took care of him, allowed him to rest, and then told him, all right, Now I need you to continue your mission. So we need to be mindful of the young people within our church that's struggling with depression, that has been traumatized in one way or another, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, rape, experience of violent crime, issues of domestic violence, which involve date violence, the death of close family members during the period of COVID-19. And we have a lot of those. And I will tell you, the school system is preparing itself for September, when it reopens, and to deal with all these traumatic events that these young people have experienced some way or another. The church should be ready also. Okay? So, to finish, traumatized experience or traumatic experience takes different forms. It doesn't just come and say, here I am. It sneaks up on you. You think you are fine, you are healed, and out of the blue, something triggers the reaction and everything breaks loose. The nightmares return. The fear, the shake, the sweat, all of it happened out of the blue. So you cannot plan for trauma, but you could prepare for trauma. So the church ought to prepare itself to deal with the traumatic events of this period instead of running and hide. Okay? Thank you.
I don't think I have to say much. The guests before me have said everything. Everything. They have not left anything else for me to say. But l'autre bagay qui me capable de dire, c'est que we're dealing with an illness with a stigma, especially in the Haitian community. Dans la communauté haïtienne, nous n'acceptons pas ce qu'on appelle mental illness. C'est ça que fait dans la communauté, communauté haïtienne, nous avons tendance pour nous capables de mettre de côté, mettre dans une boîte, cacher maladie ça. Et je finis par réaliser que maladie mentale, mental illness, c'est une maladie tant que toute l'autre maladie qui est liée. Même gens malades dans le cœur, même gens malades dans le rein, même gens malades dans le poumon, ou capable malade dans le brain, dans le cerveau tout. Et au besoin pour capable aller à un docteur, consulter et chercher traitement. Et non seulement ils ont stigma dans la communauté haïtienne, c'est ça que fait fort souvent on trouve que la communauté a refusé counseling. Il n'y a pas pour ne pas conseiller de bagaille ça. Parce que pour eux-mêmes, c'est une dégradation qui est liée. Nous avons dit avec une mental illness, une maladie qui affecte the mind, the emotion, the behavior, the thinking. Maladie ça y affecté toute bagaille ça yo. Façon qu'on pense, façon qu'on agit, façon que émotion il agit sur toute bagaille ça yo. Et s'il pas traité, s'il pas contrôlé, la venue de mal en pire. Il y a des gens qui commencent avec un système qui doux, mild, il vient modéré et il vient sévère. Et il m'a dit que nous payons attention à la maladie ça. Et dans l'église, il vient plus mal. En Haïti, les gens souffrent avec maladie, mental illness, nous avons tendance à ennuyer. Make fun of that person. Drive him wild. C'est là qu'il y a excitement. Les gens. Et dans l'église, si il y a des gens qui ont maladie, ça, nous avons tendance à mettre sur le côté dismiss. Et faire le traiter tant qu'on est un outcast. One of the guest prayer talk about depression. And depression is one of the factor that COVID-19 brought to our community, and especially the church community. C'est là qu'il met-il sur surface. Depression. Il n'est pas facile pour... Ça fait presque plus qu'une année aurait été dans le confinement, dans un cas, et cette affaire doit dire que c'est là ça, il y a un pile de bagages qui arrivent dans la famille. And of course, you know that, you study, a lot of things happen in family during this period because there's a lot of wife beating and husband beating, whatever they want, and children, a lot of things happen during that period. So, et les longtemps de dehors, il y a dans l'église là. Et c'est un secret que l'église adventiste gagne, que personne ne peut jamais parler de lui, c'est les gens qui ont calé partenaire. Les gens qui mentally unstable et ont calé partenaire, les gens qui ne pas jamais parler de lui, trouver parmi pasteurs, parmi anciens, parmi diacres, parmi membres d'église. It's there. So, depression affecte émotion, l'affecte façon qu'on behave, et l'affecte façon qu'on pense. C'est une maladie qui mène une tristesse dans vous-même, une profonde tristesse dans vous-même. Et il est capable mal, il est capable modéré, il est capable sévère. Et you parlé before, they talked before about grief. In a COVID-19 for Hebron, the first elder and myself, we talk about it. When the church reopened, the first day probably going to be like a funeral. Because Hebron experienced like almost, not there yet, but almost 30 deaths. We're not there yet, but almost in the 20s, high 20s. So there are a lot of griefs. And people cannot express it before somebody died. The church will come together and comfort you. But because of COVID-19, we cannot do that. So the person tend to be alone. The family tend to be alone. So, au lieu de grievance, peine, tu prends peu de temps, il vient plus longer, because there's no one you can, like, the doctor say you cannot hug, you cannot do these things, so it's become longer. So, because of COVID-19, we found people with a lot of anxiety. Am I gonna get it? I fear of getting it. If somebody sneezes around me, so I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. Somebody has a cold, regular cold. I'm out of myself. How come you come sitting next to me and you know you have cold? So this is something that brings anxiety in the church. Like, you know, you don't want to shake anybody's hand. You don't want to do none of come close to that person because you don't want to catch anything. So if somebody if they heard somebody in the church taking COVID, like tout le monde paniquait. Everyone panic parce que they don't know. They don't know. Everybody wanna stay clear. So anxiety, mon ap marché yo sué parce que I remember I experienced that. I went to a store and that guy come out of nowhere and cough near me. I felt like, you know, hey, what's wrong with this guy? For one night I experienced the symptoms of somebody who had COVID-19. I feel like, you know, something gonna happen to me, but you know, it was just a cough. But the anxiety, you feel discomfort. On va sentir confortable. Confortable. Ouais, non funérailles, bons amis, on va sentir confortable pour bailler un hug. To talk about it, you can talk about it, but you don't hug anymore. And ça crée un remorse. Tant qu'on met this brother told me, ça fait mal parce que puis bons amis mourir, les moi venir dans funérailles là, pas même embrasser personne. He has a remorse. He felt guilty. Felt this guilty. We distrust one another. I don't trust Dr. Muller. Dr. Muller doesn't trust me. So if somebody uses this microphone, I have to have a new one. Somebody wouldn't dare give me a microphone that somebody else used. I would be panicking because I want to have my own microphone. I want it to be clean before I use it. So we distrust. We don't have the trust that we have. That's what COVID-19 has done to the church. We used to be ensemble, tête ensemble, but we cannot anymore. And we don't know whether we reopen, things gonna return to normal. I think things bagay yo changé for long, gonna be changed for a long time. And one thing I realized that there's a text in the Bible, because I don't want to be long because they say everything. There's a text in the Bible that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. And 3 Johns, the 3rd John, and since he has one chapter, the verse 2. Bien-aimé, je souhaite que tu prospères à tous égards et sois en bonne santé comme prospère l'état de ton âme. So, I read it this way. Je souhaite que tu prospères à tous égards. I want you to prosper physically, mentally, and spiritually. I want you to make progress in those areas. And also the text says, the verse says, et sois en bonne santé. You should be in good health. That's my wish for you to be in good health. Physical, mental. You have to take care of the physical body as well taking care of the mental, your mental being, your mind. So, if your mind does not function the way it's supposed to function, you won't be able to be spiritual the way you want to be spiritual. There's a difference between being spiritual and being religious. When you're spiritual, you're connected to Christ. You have compassion, you have love, and you have mercy, pity. But when you are religious, you follow the regulation of the religion. And you have a tendency to be harsh and disregard, dismiss others because they're not the same as you are. So I was reading, I'm about to finish, I was reading an article where they say that, for church people, when you go to grief, to depression, or mental illness, you have a treasure, ou un trésor, a good thing that the church offers. Coming to church help a lot. When you come to church, il bagay esprit de tout problème qu'on te gagne qui cap rend nous depressed. And they said that prayer help with your mental disorder. When you pray, when you come to church, when you worship, that helps a lot. What changed my mind, because I'm Haitian and I had a preconceived idea when it comes to mental, I had preconceived idea when it comes to mental illness. But I used to work with the mental illness unit of Coney Island Hospital. And my job was to go after anybody with who's ill and refused to come for the medication. And my job, they had a doctor, a psychologist, I was a social worker, they have a security, and then the driver. And I used to go around Brooklyn looking for those people. And once I remember I find this young man. He hasn't come to the clinic for 6 months without medication. And finally, when I saw him, and we went after him. And since we called the police, I called the police. I was a social worker. I called the police. And the guy said to me, okay, since you called the police, Mr. Manigat, next time I see you, you're going to see. And I say, oh my God. And once again, I experienced anxiety, discomfort, guilt. And I didn't want to work anymore. And because my life has been threatened by this guy, and this guy was a big guy, bigger than I am, and he threatened me and said, like, next time I see you, I'm going to see you. I saw you all the time in the street. Next time. And one Wednesday afternoon, I came from work. And I saw my friend. I call him my friend. I saw him sitting with three other guys, big guy. And I stood for a while and I said, I don't know what to do. Est-ce que je suis supposé courir? Est-ce que je suis supposé turn the corner? What am I supposed to do? While I was standing there and thinking about what to do, and I heard somebody call my name, Mr. Manigat. And I was so nervous. And he came to me with his friends. And in 1 second, I was about to say, man, please, man, have mercy on me. Forgive me. I was about to say, Benny said, he told the other guy, this is my therapist. This is Mr. Manigat. This is my friend. He's been good to me. I say, oh, Lord, have mercy. And he gave, I never wanted to hug this guy. I worked with him for 2 years. Every time he tried to hug me, I duck him. And this is the first time he gave me a hug. And I was so glad to take that hug, to take it from him. And ever since I realized that the same way we have a heart problem, the same way we have a liver problem, somebody can have a brain problem that need to be corrected. That need to be corrected. And that changed my perspective and changed my life and changed the way I deal with people. I worked with them for many years, but I thought I was different. There's something better. But after that experience, I realized that the same way somebody can be sick with other part of their bodies, somebody can be sick in their mind. They need to be treated. So my friend, like I said, coming back to reopen the church, we're gonna have, it's just gonna be like a funeral, tant qu'on funéraille. Parce que we're gonna deal avec un pile anxieties. Les gens retournent, ils ne pas prévu chita à côté moun encore. Les gens retournent, pas prévu hug moun encore. Les gens retournent, pas prévu parler dans figi moun encore. Everybody gonna keep their distance. Things not gonna be normal. So we have to understand and accept. May God bless you. Thank you very much. J'allais moi docteur Miller campé. You have oh, you're vaccinated?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Gilbert?
Right before we started with the questions and answers, which we do have a few, we'll sing just one song, Redeemed by the Blood of the Lamb. Avant nous faire quelques questions, nous avons quelques questions au monde qui demandent dans YouTube. Nous allons chanter pour nous un seul chant, Redeemed by the Blood of the Lamb. Okay?
Redeemed, how I love to proclaim it. Redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. Redeemed through His infinite mercy. His child and forever I am. Redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. Redeemed. His child and forever I am. I sing of my blessed Redeemer. I think of Him all the day long. I sing Him and not be silent. His love is the theme of my song. Redeemed, redeemed, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. Redeemed, His child and forever I am.
see his beauty. The King is my delight. How grovelingly guardeth my footsteps, and giveth me songs in the night. Redeemed, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. Redeemed, His child and forever. I am. Where's my partner, Stephanie? We do need mics for the panelists for questions and answers.
Take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart's torn in pieces. It's my offering. Take me to the King.
Truth is, I'm tired. Options are few. I'm trying to pray, but where are you? I'm all churched out, hurt and abused. I can't fake what's left to do. Truth is, I'm weak. No strength to fight.
I feel that this is a very important topic for us to discuss. So we thank you for all for participating and for being here, those who are here and those who are on social media. Thank you once again.
We can start. Okay, first question.
So, once again, thank you to all of our panelists for the wonderful presentations that you all did. Even though some of the questions were answered, but I would just like to go over it again. And this can go to anyone. Please, just your definition of mental health once more.
Whomever wants to answer may answer.
Mental health. My personal definition is a realignment of what's deemed to be normal and what it's not. So, mental health is like any other medical condition that requires care and attention in order to realign what was set off for whatever reason.
Thank you, Dr. Obed. Anyone else want to take a crack at it?
Mental health, a personal definition for me would be being able to not only focus on what you can see, but being able to focus on the things you can't see and you can't touch and you can't really put a perspective on. Because mental health is something that it's like, it's not a distant thing, but it's not something that's in your face as well. And not everybody can overcome like the mental health issues they may be dealing with, but it's also as real as a physical health issue, like a broken arm or a heart problem. Because you can't tell you have a heart problem by just looking at somebody. You would have to get that diagnosed. Same thing as a mental health issue.
Thank you.
So one of the questions, I know, again, it was said within there, but I just want to get people's different perspectives. What are some of the different cues to mental health, or as depression and anxiety? And how can we look out for it to be more cognizant of what to do? Maybe Dr. Valcourt, maybe you want to take this one?
Just to go back to the question before, mental health is really also about illness of the mind, right? I mean, you know, how well are you? Physically, we might focus on our health physically, but oftentimes we don't think about our minds. And so when sometimes you may feel depressed, there's a feeling that comes over you and you can't explain the feeling. It could be due to maybe chemical imbalance of the brain. So if the neurotransmitters are not firing the way they should, all right, say serotonin, for example, which is a feel-good hormone, if it's not firing the way they should, then you will feel off balance. It's, you know, they say equilibrium. You're off equilibrium. Something is just not right. Something doesn't feel right. You may find yourself crying a little bit more, not sleeping very well at night, just, you know, irritable. You know, there's irritation. You feel irritable all the time, and you just can't explain, you know, the basis for it. Or the anxiety. You just feel anxious, and you really can't pinpoint what the reason might be.
Thank you, thank you.
So with that being said, if someone were to feel something is off, what avenues do you think that they could pursue? What would you tell someone who's feeling a little bit off of what they can do?
Well, generally, the same way you would go about if you felt something was to hurt physically, you would put your attention to it. Your body's saying, this hurts, right? What them feeling a little off or feeling depressed, what you should do is, if you feel like, okay, it's been a week now and I'm still feeling a little not myself, I'm still feeling like something is troubling my spirit, then you should give it the same type of attention, because that's your body saying, listen, this isn't going right. Listen, I'm not okay. Listen, your spirit is in danger. Like, you know, this like the flashing lights, and only you can, you know, see the first signs, because you are yourself, and it's up to you to be in denial or to accept, like, this is off. Let me fix it. The same way, you know, if you feel like, oh my gosh, you know, the cholesterol might be a little bit too high. Let me go to the doctor and see if my cholesterol is high, see if my glucose is high. Same way you should go about if you feel like mentally you're too tired to do regular things, mentally you're too sad to socialize, when really you're a sociable person.
Okay. Thank you.
You may want to seek an assessment from a mental health professional or from your general practitioner, as to what's going on, right? Your doctor can do what is called a PHQ-9 screening, a depression screening, to see what's going on with you and to give you some sort of diagnosis as to what's going on. Your mental health professional should also be able to do a screening of you know, your situation, and to help to give you an assessment and make recommendations. In my practice, what I do a screening first to see what's going on with the person, and then actually suggest to them that they have a physical, go to their doctor and have a physical, because it's not sometimes just the mental, but the physical as well, right? You know, we have to think about the mental and the physical, they go together. So, for example, if your D count, your vitamin D count is low, you will feel depressed, right? You know, if your iron count is low, you will feel that you just can't move. So, you know, the physical assessment as well, you know, is important. So you want to do an overall assessment to see if there's something going on physically as well as mentally.
Thank you.
And I would also add, a friend who knows you could pick up on certain changes in your behavior. If all of a sudden, as mentioned, an outgoing person is no longer interested in going out. If you've noticed a friend who's usually jovial is no longer that way, the mood changed. These are signs and symptoms that a close friend, a family member, supposed to pick up on and check in with the person. Are you okay?
Just another question that I had, somebody had brought up. How can we increase the communication between parents and their children regarding this very issue? How can they talk about it or broach the subject?
Well, the first thing to do before you even talk about it is the parents have to be more accepting that it's real, because they're not going to want to talk about something they don't even believe in or give any type of energy to. The parents have to first accept this is real, and to be able to put their love for their child over their natural norms that they were raised with. You will never be able to communicate with someone who doesn't believe in it. You'll never be able to, it's like watering a dead plant. If they're not able to accept certain things, like talking to them will be like talking to a brick wall. So if you get past the stage of acceptance, the parents first have to be able to have compassion and to be able to understand that depression or any mental illness is very intricate, because the way it starts is very intricate, and the way it stems through someone's brain is very intricate at that, because it starts from the mental and then goes physical. So the child should first be able to acknowledge, is my parent or my guardian accepting of this first, and then has to move on from, if they accept it, then they can speak to the parent, and if they don't accept it, they have to look other guardians or other adults that are accepting of that, and to be able to accept that maybe my parent isn't the person that I can go to for this. Let me go to my mentor. Let me go to my therapist. You understand? So for the people who don't have accepting parents, they do have to go another route. But once the parent is accepting, the child should first be able to accept that the parent doesn't know what you feel. They don't know what's going on with you. You have to tell them what's going on with you at times. You have to be like, yo, Ma, I'm not really feeling myself. Like, can I talk to you about something? Can I talk to you about something very serious? And your parents have to acknowledge, okay, this person is no longer a child. They're an adult with their own feelings and their own mind, and they're gonna feel things. So you have to go about it very, very like carefully, because you have to first accept who your parent is, and then you have to accept that if the parent is not who you want them to be, I should go to somebody else. And then you have to be able to forgive the parent at that, to be like, okay, my parent isn't the person I can go to for my mental illness, but I forgive them because they don't know better. But let me go to somebody else to help myself.
And I would also add, as a Haitian person, grew up in a Haitian home, mental health is not something that we talk about, nor do we recognize there's a problem mentally. So before we could get to the point, avant nous arriver à un point pour nous parler de ça, nous pour nous éduquer parents nous de maladie ça. And education is the key to healing. Si pas de éducation, pas de healing, qu'après fait. Ou vient gen denial, tout le temps gen denial, gen ignorance, and so on and so forth. So I would say we need to educate our people about what mental health is. We need to educate our people on the signs of mental illness. We need to educate our people as well as our church members that there's nothing wrong with someone with a mental illness. Mental illness is manageable as long as we accept that we have them in our midst.
I just want to add also that sometimes as parents, the reality is we don't want to accept that anything is wrong with our child. We don't want to. So we go into denial, right? We go into denial that there is a problem. And that denial stops us from seeking help. So it's important that when we recognize that there's a problem, that we are willing, as my colleague here has said, to actually say, you know what, we need to get some help. But it's not that easy to accept that there is a problem, because it's really accepting that something is wrong. And something's wrong with my child, right? And we don't want anything to be wrong with our child. We want to present perfect. We have this idea that an image that we try to maintain, this image of perfection. And you don't talk about anything that's going on in your family. That's not something we talk about. You know, we keep that on the down low, you know, keep that quiet. So whatever you're going through, you know, don't talk about it. So by not talking about it, we deny the very existence of it, right?
And we personalize it too, because if my child is mentally ill, that means I'm mentally ill. So the problem is no longer focusing on my child, but it's focusing on me as the problem. And I must say, mental illness is not one person's problem, but an entire family's problem. Because Si vous avez qui a un problème mental dans caillou, l'affecte nous tous. Nous te met vle pas l'accepter li, mais la fa affecter nous tous.
Pour toucher sur ça, yo t'a dit, un peu problème avec mon haïtien, yo pensé de moun trop. Yo pensé oh qui ça moun ça a dit avec des petits moun moi si petit moun moi aller dit tout moun oh ils ont problème dans tête. Qui ça moun a pensé de moi or me vinn l'église chaque samedi, dans tout problème dans tout programme ça yo, m'pa accepter m'ka gon petit moun qui ont problème dans mental. Parce que connaît premier bagage moun penser au dit oh gen un problème mental, yo penser oh ti fi ça fou. Oh ti fi ça gen job là dans li. Ou like premier bagage yo penser, yo pas penser oh on connaît maybe ti moun sa non gros problème, maybe ti moun sa il aller non bagage qui très grave et il pas accepter qui ça qui fait. Yo toujours penser oh il fou ou connaît ti moun sa désordre and moun haïtien yo remet quitter tout bagage dans caillou et la problème n'a commencé dans caillou, on ne pas penser pour yo aller point aide d'ailleurs et pile moun haïtien pas accepter pour ti moun yo aller dans thérapie, pour ti moun yo aller dans rehab, yo penser yo perdu ti moun là yo commencer accepter OK ti moun nan gon problème dans tête.
Another point to remember is that often the child or the individual in the family who has the mental illness is really the symptom bearer of the family problem. And it's not always easy for the family to want to accept that there is a problem. So what they do, they tend to want to get rid of that symptom bearer and to basically scapegoat that family member. And when you scapegoat that family member, then it's that person, not the family, right? Exactly. Rather than accept that the person with the problem is often the symptom bearer of what's going on in the family.
Well, I would love to thank each and every one of you for your wonderful insight. There are some very good nuggets that you guys just gave there, and I thank you, and we will definitely put it into practice. This concludes the question and answer portion of our forum. I just want to say a thank you first and foremost to all of our panelists and also the pastor who had to leave. Just a word to say, like I said, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but just because it's a month doesn't mean that it ends right there. This is an ongoing issue that we all have, and we all have to work together. Remember, the same way, you know, if there's something wrong with our leg or our arm, we're not ashamed to go to the doctor. We don't need to be ashamed of having a mental illness. I know there's a stigma attached to it, but we are here for one another, and we are here to help one another overcome this. I thank you all for participating and for joining us. Till next time.
If you know the song, please join us in singing. We're singing Adieu soit la gloire par son grand amour. We will do one verse in French and one in English. The one in English is To God be the glory, great things he has done. All those who are at home, praise with us, please. You know the songs, praise. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord. Let the people rejoice. Oh, come to the Father through Jesus the Son, and give Him the glory within sin and blood. Oh, praise Him, oh, praise Him, oh, praise the Lord. Let us pray.
Our Father, our God, we thank you. We glorify you. We honor you for what you have done for us. Sickness is something that we expected to be eradicated when we are with you. Because you didn't create us to be sick. You create us well. But the enemy find a way to attack your children. Bless those who present those facts today, especially the young Kimberly who grew up with us. We thank you for recognizing those situations. Let us help us to do better for those who are coming up, to get watchful eyes so that we will be able to see these things. Have mercy upon each and every one of us as we are about to leave this place. Guide us and protect us. Cover us, Lord. We do pray in the most precious name of thy Son, Jesus, who died at the cross to save us from sin. Amen.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Have a blessed week all.
Who am I that I remain on your mind? I don't know, but I'm grateful, God. What have I done to deserve your only son? Oh, I don't know, but you're faithful. I thank you for not leaving me where you found me, God. Oh, I am loved by you. I am loved by you, just as I am. Feels good to be loved by you. in prisoners' chains with bleeding stripes. Paul and Silas prayed that night, and in their pain began to sing. Their chains were loosed, and they were free. I bless your name. I bless your name. I give you honor, give you praise. You are the life, the truth, the way. I bless your name. I bless your name. Some midnight hour, if you should find you're in a prison in your mind, reach out and praise it, fight those chains, and they will fall in Jesus' name. We bless your name. We bless your name. We give you honor, give you praise. You are alive, the truth, the way. We bless your name. We bless your name. You are the life, the truth, the way. We bless your name. We bless your name.
Take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart is torn in pieces. It's my offering. Take me to the King.
Truth is, I'm tired. Options are few. I'm trying to pray, but where are you? I'm all churched out, hurt and abused. I can't fake what's left to do. Truth is, I'm weak, no strength to fight, no tears to cry. Even if I tried, but still my soul refuses. refuses to die.